for another session of chatting about hobby related things. I'm joined by my two brothers, and I'm happy to say our friend Phil, Scrap.code on Instagram and such, he's here again to chat with us. We have a lot of
everybody.
we have a lot of things to talk about tonight. I think primarily we're gonna have kind of an unfocused discussion about kill teams.
Focused because none of us are really sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the way of it.
And we're not sure how interested we are in knowing what's going on, but we'll get to that.
I'm interested. It's just I want to stay interested. How about that?
Yeah. Well, the community page just had a cool new article about Kill Team today that basically had no information other than that an entrenching tool will be included in the deathcore set of models.
That's pretty sweet.
Like a shovel.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can't have, Space Krieg without shovels, I don't think.
Without them folding shovels.
They pretty much make games according to memes.
Well, looking at it, they have the picture, like the Karl Kopinski picture that was drawn for the deathcore and whatever Forge World book. And
I do love that guy's stuff.
The entrenching tool was like kind of like one of the ones that you unscrew to fold. But the one in the model form is not a foldable one.
What? How dare they?
Yeah.
It's a fail on Games Workshop part, but like, I don't know. I guess what do you expect? It's Games Workshop.
I'm willing to forgive that. I'm not a rivet counter. If it looks cool, it makes me want to paint it. I'm into it. Like, they could be carrying bananas for all I care.
Or bananas.
That sounds
cool
like what GW would do.
You ever painted a banana? They're super fun.
They sound like, thinking about it, they sound like they would be.
It's a fun shape, fun colors, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot like that. So
that I agree with that. The most interesting thing about this post is, in addition to the little shovel they're showing you, they're also sort of showing you some of the sprues and such, and it looks as if the little, is that what that is? I was gonna say they kind of show you some of the breakdown of the components and stuff for the models, and it looks like they're cut apart into lots of little pieces, which I feel might be a good sign.
Yeah.
But people want it as multi-part as possible, I guess. But we'll see. Ultimately, the post doesn't say a whole lot. Certainly not about the game or anything, but I mean, I guess they're gonna try to milk this out as long as possible.
Sure, man. So, I mean, it's come in and enjoy the advertising.com,
Yeah, it's true.
But that's cool though. I mean, if I've heard, again, I'm not a great authority on this stuff or whatever, but I've heard some modelers especially complain that a lot of the recent model releases have had like too few pieces and too few assembly options or whatever, like, so having many pieces hopefully will make them
I'm sure it'll be a little bit better with the different options and such, but it's not going to be like, I don't know, the early 2000s, how multi-part kits were made.
I could go either way on that one, man.
Yeah,
those were fun for small projects or whatever, but if you were trying to make an army out of those things,
yeah, they weren't good.
Yeah,
would have been a mess.
In terms of the notion of complaining about there's some of the new miniatures having no options and whatnot, the new Necromunda Redemptionists are a good example of that.
Really?
Like, literally no options. They have like one version of every weapon you can get for them. They have very few heads. There are literally no like little pouches or extra knickknacks and stuff that you can glue on their waist or anything. There's literally nothing. I was surprised. So they're pretty
bare bones.
Yeah, you should steer clear from them.
It's too bad. That was always a fun bunch of crazies back in the 90s, but
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yes, some of the old metal models were cool.
I thought the pictures made them look better than they actually were. And it's normally
Yeah.
the other way around.
I've been
Mhm.
surprised before too. Like I've definitely like pulled out a couple of models and looked at them and been like, I'm not excited about this at all. But when you start getting paint on them, they kind of come alive a little bit too. Like I'm not saying they're all
Mhm.
like that, but just I
I
always
think you
try
could
to
make
inject that little ray of hope
yeah.
where I can.
You could create some nice models from them with some work, and I mean I'm trying to convert a model from them, so like I know I'll be able to make something cool out of them, but it surprised
Yeah.
me how kind of bad they were. And they were worse than what I could glean from looking at the boxes and the pictures and stuff. Or at
Mhm.
least in terms of my level of investment and me looking at the set, it surprised
So
me.
worse than most of the other Necromunda plastic box sets then too?
I think it's the worst Necromunda plastic box set, save the Orlocks. The Orlocks are on like another tier. They maybe even the worst, some of the worst models Games Workshop has ever released.
We're
They're-
just opening up with just nothing but love today, basically.
Yeah.
We're going straight for the esprit de corps there.
Yep. It happens. It happens sometimes.
We're going to talk
Hey,
about the new release.
Lifeboat.
Everything
Hey.
is terrible.
Nice to have you here, Lifeboat and Unsupervised Darkness.
Yeah, I hate everything. Why am I in this
Nothing
hobby?
matters.
Stream's over, guys. We're out.
Oh, you're allowed to complain. I complain plenty. I just yeah, it's tough. I want to be excited about this stuff. We're just gonna have to see the direction they go with it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
On an unrelated note, I played around with one of the new Stormcast models that you could get one for free at Games Workshop if you went in and bought some stuff. And so
That's
I
cool.
did that. I got the Dumb and Bad Redemptionists, and I got one of these models. And they are leagues nicer than the old plastic Stormcasts. Like, they're not even close. The thought that went into like how the armor interworks and interlocks together, the transitions between armor plating and stuff, like actually kind of makes sense.
That's
They're
cool.
posed better, their anatomy's way better. They're just way better. They look so much better. The only negative thing about it is they're also almost like twice as tall. They are huge. Huge. So
Yeah, if they redesign anything, I think they're contractually obligated to make it bigger. So.
yeah, and so like I assume
Except for
that
the zombies.
yeah. Oh yeah, the zombies. Like literally the new plastic zombies are about half the size. Like they go up to the waist of these new models.
Yeah, they just needed to make sure that they weren't going to overwhelm once they put the gravestones on all their backs,
Yeah. Yeah. So they're good, but they're huge.
Fair enough. I don't hate that. I don't like scale creep in general, just because because I'm old and all the new orcs make all of my old orcs look tiny. But
Yeah.
other than that, whatever. The new models are cool. I try not to get too upset about the march of progress as long as it is actually a little bit cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it's all right, if we're being really honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they tend to get better.
I think the weirdest thing with the zombies, I feel, the new plastic zombies, which I think are great, they are probably close to like actual 28mm scale, and then everything else not even close. So it's interesting how much of a difference in scale there is in the vampire count range for things that were all released in essentially the same time. Like,
Okay.
the zombies are much smaller than the skeletons, which are much smaller than the vampire like, so it's just, there's an extreme difference in the size of the different models. And in some regards it doesn't matter that much, and like if you're playing them in like an Age of Sigmar like army scale thing, like you probably need tons of zombies, and it's probably
Yeah.
better they're not like the size of these new Stormcast models. But
Yeah.
if you're more in the market for using some of these models to make cool little narrative scenes or like anything like that, it's a little harder to get everything to work together because they're not even close to the same size. And the zombies are the biggest departure from everything.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tough as a modeler. Like, on one hand, I obviously the modularity of the range is nice because you can always have bits for stuff that works between whatever, ideally. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's also kind of cool to see them actually putting out models that have more distinct sizes and shapes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a pain in the ass for the modularity angle or whatever, but it's also nice to have a zombie that doesn't look like he's big enough to stomp on your house.
Yeah.
So
I mean, these
That
new
is true.
zombies are great. They're some of the nicer models I think GW has put out in a while, and
pictures I saw look cool.
they're much I feel they're much closer to kind of a scale that I would rather more of the GW models were proportioned and scaled a little more like that.
It's just so few are, I guess.
Yeah.
I definitely think, like, you kind of nailed it with the terminology there too. It's not so much scale that's the issue with Citadel sculpts; it's proportion. Like, I realize I'm poking fun at that while I'm sitting here painting a super deformed chibi dude or whatever, but like, it's.
I mean, admittedly, that
heroic
chibi
proportions
dude,
are crazy.
that chibi dude looks basic. His proportions are pretty akin to a traditional plastic Space Marine.
Yeah, I mean,
They're like
the
not
Head
really
being the size of the
different.
entire body.
Yeah, they're really not different.
well, I mean,
And if you go on the Kill Team's website and click on the Space Marines, after you click through all the different Space Marine unit types, close to the end, almost the end, there is a tactical Marine. And God, when looking in relationship to all the others, it almost looks like it's a practical joke that this isn't serious. But
is it an
it is.
old TAC Marine, or
It's just a regular old plastic tactical Marine, and not even that old. It's from the Mark IV box when they made plastic Mark IV Heresy armor sort of stuff.
Oh man, I didn't even know they put those out in plastic. I'm real on top of this. I see why you asked me to come talk with you. Yeah.
That mod looks like a joke.
I mean, to me, looking at it, his
Definitely.
head, his helmeted head, I think is close to 3 times as large as it should be. And if the head was like much smaller, then you could maybe
It almost
even
looks like the top.
you might even be able to argue that his scale he's scaled and proportioned okay, but with the head that big, you can't argue with. Like, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah,
Like, holy shit.
I
it
mean,
looks so bad.
You know what else is rough?
They're funny. What's up?
The new
What?
Black Widow film is rough.
Did you watch it?
I saw it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll say one thing. There's a scene in it where Natasha or Black Widow is trying to shoot who was essentially her master at one point, who like put her in the assassin program or whatever. I don't know I don't know my Marvel.
Like the space program for ninjas,
Yeah, she's trying to shoot him, and then she can't because there's like some, I'm gonna say, neural lock thing on all of the people that this dude had trained, such that she she can't harm him. So she's trying to shoot him and she can't. And then he makes a quip like, "Oh, is the safety on?" And then he pulls the gun away and looks down at it to see if the safety's on. But the whole time,
Was
the
it a
whole time
Glock?
Natasha has a Glock, which like Glocks don't have external safety. Like,
How could
almost
they?
any semi-auto pistol anymore. But
Oh my god.
yeah,
so
everything's
Like, he
got good
couldn't
safety
be
in it,
that dumb.
right?
Well, it's just bad writing, bad writers.
yeah, bad writing. That's what that is.
That's fucking great. That's fucking
Either
great.
that, or it's either that, or it's fan service for fucking gun nerds.
I
Here's
almost
something to complain about, assholes.
we're like, that's so funny. Like they did that. Oh, like oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm confident. It's just they wrote that as a funny joke, and then they gave this stuff to somebody. All right, we need guns for these scenes. Like, somebody choose the guns.
I don't.
And
I feel like you'd kind of have to be kind of like in that crew to be a prop wrangler for firearms.
to be
Like,
fair, Lifeboat, I watched the whole movie. The whole movie's bad. I sat through the whole film.
Lifeboat says the entire movie was bad writing.
fair enough. I would believe that. I've been
Fucking
entertained.
great.
I'm not a Marvel guy to begin with, but I've been entertained by most of the Avenger movies or whatever. But I definitely would hesitate to call any of them good.
Yeah. I don't think you could. I don't think you could call one good without putting a whole bunch of caveats like, "Oh, it's supposed to be fun action. That's why the writing is poor and the characterization is bad." And
I'm willing to forgive a lot for the sake of something not claiming to be something it isn't. Like,
yeah.
you can, if you set out to just make a fun movie that isn't fucking great, that whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna like put you up for an Academy Award or whatever, but
Yeah.
good on you. Thanks, I appreciate the fun. But
I feel the issue with some of that is I feel eventually it gets to the point that is used too much as an excuse to like get away from the fact that there wasn't a good script or whatever. Like,
yeah,
you could make even like the first Iron Man film was pretty fun action bullshit, but it wasn't a terrible movie.
yeah.
Like, there was character development, and there was
How many characters were in that one?
yeah, so that did help since it was like their first film, that they didn't feel obligated to cram every goddamn Marvel character
Yeah.
that they had.
Anytime
like
your
the
cast gets
license
huge,
for.
characterization is going to be a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah,
obviously.
it's true.
Lifeboat says, remember that time when Natasha sky surfed down an exploding satellite without a parachute while doing karate?
I mean, that sounds pretty fucking cool to me.
and then like enemy troopers were jumping down after her, shooting their rifles and stuff.
Were they falling faster than she was because they were trying harder?
I hope.
They weren't.
I always like it when that happens.
Yeah, God, I can only hope so.
Yeah, that's fucking great.
I need to
sick.
save you. I'm gonna fall faster.
Yeah, I can bend the rules of gravity to my will. Fucking great.
I'm not asking for a lot, guys. Either way,
That's all I want.
nah, fuck it. I'm okay with dumb as long as you're not trying to claim that it's not.
Yeah, provided
I
they
agree.
don't try to claim to be something else. Like, it's
Don't tell me it's art and
fine.
we're good. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, nah, that makes sense.
I have enough fun with dumb that if somebody announces that's the goal, then I'm on board. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Loading.
Yeah, no, I have not seen it, and I am not going to rush out to see it.
It depends on the
Well, I mean,
scale you're
yeah.
comparing it to. Darkness, which part are you talking about there, partner?
Yeah, I'm not
Wh-
sure if
We're talking scale of screenwriting, or are we talking scale of dude? Like, what are we after there? I'm behind. Or did that one already get covered? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to throw.
I'm not sure.
I just realized after I looked back the last time I sat down with you guys just to make sure my mic worked or whatever, and I realized a couple of people said stuff, and I wasn't watching the chat because I forgot that exists. So that's
Yeah.
bad. I was just trying to make sure I was trying to keep up. But yeah, kill team stuff. For a bunch of guys that haven't read it and don't really know what's in it, I
Dave
don't know.
says, compared to any DC flicks, Marvel, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is Oscar material. That's something we can all agree on. Like,
Yeah,
I think
it's real tough to get behind Snyder. That's a tough,
that's something
tough
we can
pony to
all
bear.
agree on. Like, I think overall, the Marvel Cinematic experience, I think, is remarkably good. Like,
Given that I'm sitting in a room full of guys that are acutely aware of the safety mechanisms of specific pistols, it is
Yeah.
kind of ironic though, because Snyder's definitely a gun guy.
yeah.
But that's the one. It's not even a redeeming quality in my. It's
No.
that's the one thing. Like, if somebody pulls out a weapon in a Snyder movie, it's going to function the way it's supposed to. So that's a thing. Not enough to watch his movies, but it's a thing.
No.
I mean, I
it's
think
not.
overall, the Marvel stuff, like, it's sort of remarkable how they've, for the most part, connected, like, nearly all of the movies, such that if you get into it and are, like, you're excited to watch each one, like, it kind of builds and goes in different ways and introduces new things. Like, they've done a pretty
They've
good job
maintained
with
kind
that.
of a light tone for most of it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
About the first 17 days of the Snyder cut, we're all right there.
Yeah.
I turned that on one morning just because it just like popped up as new on my HBO feed or whatever. I was like, I'm having a biscuit, whatever. Let's see what's on. I'm like, 5 hours. Like,
I think I was on a plane and I watched the non-Snyder cut version. Like, and God, it was so horrible. Like, I couldn't, with good conscience, go and try to watch the Snyder cut.
Was it
Based
worse
on
than
that.
touch.
Was it worse than Batman versus Superman?
Woo!
That
Yeah.
was so bad too. And Aquaman was so terrible.
I didn't see Aquaman, but
I
like,
watched some of that on a plane as well, and I couldn't watch more than like 10
Batman
minutes.
versus Superman. Like, why did you say her name for Martha or whatever?
Is this a twist? What the fuck just happened? I was surprised I got to that point in that for real.
I don't even remember why you so.
Like,
I don't even know.
Batman and Superman were beating the shit out of each other, like, and
Like
I don't-
apocalyptic final
yeah,
battle
it's
level. Like
one of them's gonna die, and then they
And then be
bonded
brought back
over the
in the next
fact
film.
that like both of them, their mothers had the same, and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh
like,
my god.
put the brakes on the whole shebang. Like, I don't. For all I know, that happened in the comics. I don't fucking know. I don't even know how I got that long in that movie. Like, I don't remember
Yeah,
much else about it.
It was like ridiculously bad.
I don't know if I just got hammered or like what, but like legit, like the end of that movie, I was just like, okay, that's how we're gonna end it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it
bad
was,
times. Bad film.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. I mean, maybe with that said, maybe we want to just shift away and get into like recording this episode as a podcast and talk about Kill Team and stuff. Because
I want Kill Team to be interesting enough that we don't start talking about Batman versus Superman.
yeah, bad DC moves.
That is a hard indictment that we just pulled there
Yeah.
without meaning to in any way.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I want this to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but would people be fine if I just start recording it and go into my intro and whatever?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so if people are fine, I'm going to start this.
Yep.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, Between the Bolter and Me podcast. This is episode 86, and I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here tonight with my two brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey, everybody.
Greg Wire.
Hey, everyone.
And I'm excited that our friend Phil, or known as Scrap.code and Instagram, is here with us as well. Hey, Phil, nice to have you here.
I am not a wire.
Yeah, yeah, your voice sounds a little different than ours,
Little, just little.
and that's good. That's good.
Thanks for having me come hang out, guys. It was fun.
But I guess if people aren't familiar with Scrap.code, he's actually part of another podcast called Premonition of Paint, which is associated with another podcast
Just to make this as complicated as possible.
yeah, it's like as complicated as possible, but that deals with Gunpla and Gundam sort of hobby and such, which is sort of a related miniature assembly painting thing. But that podcast is called The Cutting Mat, and if you just search that on any sort of podcast system that you listen to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatnot, you should easily find The Cutting Mat, and all the Premonition of Paint episodes should be there as well. And yeah, I would recommend anyone who isn't already following and listening to give it a try, and then I think you'll like it. But I guess having said that, we wanted to have him on, Bill, on today to just talk about kind of the new, potentially exciting thing that was recently announced by Games Workshop, which is an updated version of Kill Team. And they kind of revealed it recently with an animated trailer with these like kind of orcs and deathcore Krieg and all these new models.
It had bomb squigs. That's all you need to know. They could have just made a trailer of bomb squigs, and I would have been like, sweet, let's do this.
Yeah.
That would have made for a more compelling trailer.
Yeah, but regardless, so they had all this stuff, and for the last week or two, they've been slowly releasing new information about Kill Team, like about the models and how the game is changing and such. And I thought it would be fun to, have this episode to sort of talk about our thoughts on what has been revealed and what we're hoping for and what, this new edition could even be. And kind of maybe towards that end, in general, are people excited about Kill Team? And if so, why you may be or why you might not be?
I'm cautiously optimistic. And
I want to believe, yeah.
and I guess the only reason I say that is because for anyone following our podcast or the blog for a while know that we're more into the skirmish style of gameplay and games and such, like smaller model count, more atmospheric storytelling and stuff like that. And I sort of feel like Kill Team has always been something that I thought I should like and would like, and I feel in the past maybe it didn't really quite reach what I wanted it to reach. Like, it didn't necessarily facilitate character building or stories or anything like that, and so I'm hoping
tends to just be rehashing of general 40k rules. And yes, I kind of towards that end as well. When I initially heard that they were, going to do a new edition, I wasn't particularly interested, other than like, an opportunity to maybe have some new models. That in itself, I guess, is exciting because that's why most of us are here. But in general, it seemed like it would. Why would you be too excited when it would likely just be kind of rehashing the edition again? Like, they honestly, I feel this version of Kill Team, where they tried to make it a more substantial game, is maybe only 2 years old. Like, I feel like I was buying the digital version of the book on release day not long ago, and like why would I want to buy another rule book to have them just like re-streamline the game and like, oh, we have too many special rules now, gotta do something about that, like, which I feel tends to be Games Workshop's thing, in that like 40K hasn't been that dissimilar to second edition, and it just sort of rehashing that again and again. But interestingly, with the little they have released about the rules, it seems like this is actually a pretty substantial overhaul and is not just insert edition of 40K, whichever one, and like you kind of know what's happening there. And I think that the fact that they're trying to actually change it up makes me more interested in it, in the fact that, like, as you were saying, Adam, maybe they will be able to better capture sort of this narrative elements that skirmish games, I feel, should be able to provide, or that's what why I'm excited about a skirmish game to begin with.
I think that kind of depends on, like what you want out of a skirmish game in the first place, and in fact,
That is true.
what Kill Team ever was. Because don't get me wrong, I love narrative stuff. I really do. Narrative stuff is great, but Kill Team originally wasn't even really intended to be that. Like,
Yeah, so it wasn't from
when it first came out, it was just, it wasn't like in the appendices of the 4th edition rulebook or whatever. It was literally just like lunch break level 40K or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they
Which is
had a
great.
bunch of versions in White Dwarf and
Yeah.
such, which I
Okay.
think was just like you're saying. It's just like, can we cut this back, add a couple special rules
Mhm.
to maybe make a specialist or two, but just
cut
cut
out the
it down and
vehicles,
make
just
it
a couple
quicker.
guys. Yeah, and honestly, I think there's a lot of room for that. Like,
Yeah.
I love a really involved narrative skirmish game. That when you have a low model count, you allow the openness and the mechanics to make room for that, which is great. But it's also fun to have a fucking game you can play in 20 minutes for real. Like,
Well,
I would be perfectly happy
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they figured out a way to actually do that this time. 'Cause
Well, so
that would be
that's
cool.
actually interesting. And I mean, I guess none of us are probably that well equipped to answer this, but I'm pretty sure the most recent edition of 40K that was released not that long ago, it actually has a way to play games sort of akin to that old Kill Team thing that was very small level quick games, and
Mhm.
people wondered like, hey, what does this mean for Kill Team? This kind of sounds like that. Are they trying to replace it in this way?
Okay.
And not having read any of those rules, I can't speak to it
We're setting ourselves up for these
So
great
more.
things that none of
Yeah,
us
like
are
we're
qualified to
clearly the
talk about.
experts here, everybody.
So I started
But-
reading the rules, but I
Okay.
never got as far to reading about the different styles of play.
Gotcha.
But I guess maybe all of this is to say that I feel maybe this is why they're doing a new edition, that they're trying to push it to be a slightly different thing, allowing like the newest edition of 40K already is like the most streamlined
Is
the
it?
game has been, to better facilitate larger model count stuff.
Right.
And I guess perhaps they did want to get it such that you can still use this quick streamlined system, but also play with less models as well. And that maybe freed it up, like, let's actually do something a little different here to cater to a different crowd.
I am excited about the small stat line thing that I saw. If it doesn't fall into the same trap that a lot of other small stat line design systems have, of just like compensating for the simplicity of the core mechanics by adding on a shitload of special rules that nobody can remember.
Yeah, that
if
could
they don't do
easily
that,
happen.
It would be cool if they didn't go that direction. Also, I was super stoked when I saw something. I don't know if this is legit or if I just bought a headline or whatever, but it looked like, basic small arms are just the range of the table, which
That
is
does sound to be
awesome.
correct.
Like, that's just smart. Like, I've played a lot of games that do that, where it's like, have you got a rifle? Sweet, you you have range to anything here. You know,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no. So, and I think that is a thing. One of the things that they have revealed that pretty much all weapons just have max range per se. But even the size of the kill team board from the last edition was basically such that like a 24-inch weapon was always in range. So like it makes sense that like why bother with that additional stat line?
Yeah, and when you're playing on
when
small
it's
scale,
all close quarter stuff. I think there is a slight exception. Some weapons, like I'm gonna say flamethrowers and stuff, they have ranges.
Oh yeah, if
So,
you've got
but
a
it's
template
more
weapon
like
or whatever. Do
the
they do templates
exception.
still? Are there still templates? Did they
There
get
are
rid of
not
those?
templates.
What? Actually made
Templates are
sense for
not
a
in.
flamer. Oh well.
Yeah, but they like some like I think even they released like a data card for whatever for like a las pistol or whatever, and I think the pistol has the range of like 6 inches. I think it was 6. So like some of them are limited,
right?
but in general, it's not a stat that you have to be too concerned with,
Well, yeah,
which I think is good.
I always thought in like Warhammer 40,000 and all those other things, a lot of the ranges of some of the weapons seemed so artificial and like limiting.
It is.
Like
It
just
is.
stupid. Like you had your Vindicare assassin with their stupid sniper rifle, and they could shoot almost nothing with the ranges they used to have. Maybe they increased it or something, but it just always seemed stupid to me. And
Yeah, range on something that small. I mean, it's whatever. Whether you're a gun nerd or not, you know, you're just like, so if I just extrapolate this ground scale, which 40K has never had, then
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, this thing shoots like what, like 50 feet before it becomes range,
Yeah.
ineffective. Like that's not great.
Yeah. But
But you got a game written by guys that don't have guns.
yeah. Yeah, not. It's true. But I guess they have revealed some information, some stat lines and things like this that make it seem like the game is going to be a little bit more granular in some respects than
Cool.
other games. But as
can you
Phil,
give
like
us
you
an
were
example
mentioning,
of this?
yeah, I'll talk about it briefly. But as you were mentioning, Phil, like I like the idea of it being more granular to be more true to like what maybe someone's imagining Imperial Guardsman compared to a Space Marine or whatever.
Sure.
But if there's too much, it could be bog things down considerably.
And then it's
which
not even
is
fun to play.
Complication
Yeah,
is fun if the complication increases the fun by a comparative amount. If adding the complication increases the fun, that's the right complication. If adding the complication punishes something for a design oversight in the first place or whatever, you're just like, well, fuck you, man. Now you're just complicating it for no reason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, so I guess
sorry.
maybe we can talk a little bit about what some of the rules are, and maybe even just starting with like a las gun or whatnot. It seems the way, so you don't have to worry with range, but looking at a las gun, it seems like whenever you're firing one, it has 4 attacks, like the attack of 4, meaning you roll 4 dice whenever you're shooting it. And from the little I've looked at it, I don't really get the impression that that's necessarily to represent that, oh, that means every time you shoot it, you like the las gun, you make 4 rapid shots or something. I don't think that's necessarily what it's supposed to be. Like, I think the flamer, for example, it has like 5 attacks.
Okay.
But regardless, you roll those and you have a ballistic skill as well with it. Like for the las gun for these guardsmen, it's a 4+. So you roll your 4 dice, and any successes for like a 4+ just cause damage. And the damage for the weapon is listed there as 2/3. And what that essentially means, any success is going to cause 2 damage. But if you got a critical hit, which is just a 6, you do the second set of damage, which for the las gun is a 3.
It's like exploding damage or whatever.
Yeah, sort of. So in this case, so like the best you could do with a las gun is if you got 4 hits all on 6s, like 3 times 4, so you could do up to 12 damage.
So do these guys have like crazy huge like damage numbers that you're aiming
Yeah,
for,
so
or do you have to
and
beat
models
armor
have
numbers?
more wounds now. So an Imperial Guardsman, so like a human has like maybe 7 wounds.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
But I guess the interesting thing here is, so if you are hit by a weapon like that, the models no longer have toughness or anything. They just have a defense value, I believe. I forget if that's what it's called, but they essentially have a defense value, which I think for humans, like a human, it's 3, meaning so whenever you're attacked, you just roll 3 defense die, and successes are based on what your armor save is. So Imperial Guard, it's like a 5+. So you essentially roll your defense dice when you're attacked, and any successes can cancel out hits.
Okay.
And I think you need a critical save. So like on a 6, they cancel out like critical hits.
Okay.
Or you have to use 2 normal successes to cancel out a critical shot.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like what's it called? Warhammer Underworlds, like Shadespire, those games.
Right.
In that, like, each player kind of rolls their pool of dice, sort of. And
Does this
you
have
kind
special dice, or is it like
they're
regular
just
D6?
they're just regular D6.
Okay.
But and then you kind of compare them. And in the case, so like if a human is shooting a lasgun at another human, they're gonna, of their 4 shots, since it's a 4+, so you will likely get 2 hits. And so that's would therefore be about 4 damage. And then they'll roll 3 defense dice because that's their stats, and since it's only on a 5+, maybe you'll cancel one of those, so you'll probably take like 2 damage.
Well, so I wonder,
I don't hate it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like so you're certainly going to be forced to keep track of, like, oh, this dude has 3 wounds, or whatever. So that could become kind of weird.
That sounds like Token Town to me.
Yeah, Token. Yeah, which could be bad.
Anytime I hear like large numbers, I'm just like, but
yeah, so that could be a little But so I don't remember the last version of Kill Team. Did they have stuff where people, like, once they took hits, they'd like go to the ground and like then they couldn't?
Yes, it was kind of the Necromunda thing. If you
get knocked down.
I don't know if I ever fully decided what I thought of that system. In many regards, like, it sort of made sense, but I don't know if it was fun.
Yeah.
So I think in the old version of Kill Team, you never got suppressed unless you actually took a wound and didn't die, like rolled less than a 4. You could just like stand up or whatever. It wasn't like Necromunda, which if you even got hit, you went down and had to stand up. I think they removed that because that can sometimes be not fun, like you're saying. That like
that was basically what Gorkamorka did. They just got rid of that.
Yes.
they're orcs. They don't fall down.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
So, but it remains to be seen if there will be like a suppression mechanic here. They haven't spoken to that.
It's a thing that could be really fun if it's handled well. I'm not enough of a designer to have an opinion on that, but it's one of those like very realistic mechanics that if it could be made fun, it makes a lot of sense for it to be there.
And so I guess it'll be interesting because we haven't really seen other models. Like a human has 7 wounds and 3 defense die. And so basically, regardless of what's shooting at it, they'll just roll 3 defense die. So it's not like 40k in which like, I got hit 3 times or like 2 times from that bolter that shot me, so I will make 2 saves. Like, I'm pretty sure you just make your defense roll and see what happens.
And like whatever didn't clear
Do we
it
know
gets
how-
hit or whatever.
Do we know how many like wounds or whatnot an orc has?
We do not.
Okay.
So it's hard to talk about it. But in the same sense, like, I think like probably a melt-a-gun or whatever probably does a lot of damage. So like certain models, even though they have like 7 wounds or whatever, like they have very little chance of actually defending it. But with that said, I suspect an orc, since toughness isn't in here, I would suspect they probably roll a bunch of defense dice, like more than 3. And even if their armor save is bad, like a 5 or a 6, perhaps they roll a lot of dice. So
Yeah,
there's
it just
like,
depends on how you reckon toughness. Like
Yeah.
in my mind, toughness is better represented by resistance to the damage in the first place. But if you can hurt them, they're just as squishy as anybody else. You know?
yeah.
See, the
Also,
one thing that is, so some of those mechanics I think could make it such that there is quite a bit of difference between like orcs and humans. The thing that worries me a little is if we look in the boxed game, what comes in it, you essentially have like an equal number of models on either side.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of suggests to me that the differences between the orcs and humans might not be that big.
well, if it's anything like the other version, the older version of Kill Team, like last edition, you didn't necessarily use all the
Yeah.
models in a game that are provided. So,
It could
but yeah,
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
I hope there is kind of that, you know, that's the problem with and why I like narrative games more. Like this is where like I'm willing to invest more time in a game if it feels more crunchy, you know, like if it's just a shoot 'em up game or whatever, keep it simple, make it fast, you know. But for what you're talking about, you know, like say
Like, because I think it
4
could.
orcs are as good as 30 Imperial Guardsmen or whatever, you know, like that could be cool, but at the same time, I kind of like asymmetry in a game. So like the fact that I get they have a market, they have a target audience or whatever. Those guys like to be competitive. They want to make something that can be tournament friendly. Fine, you know, it's not
Well,
my
I mean,
thing, but whatever.
in all the pictures they show of like models being used to play the games in this post, they use all the models.
Well, yeah, of course they do because they're
Because
studio
you're
shots,
using
you know?
all of them. You need those models.
Yeah, you gotta have.
But I don't know, like,
thousands.
it would help a lot if they gave like the general orc stat line to just better
Didn't they just
understand.
announced this like a week ago anyway.
It's like 2 weeks, I think, or
2 weeks,
maybe it's a week. I don't know.
That's whatever. I mean, obviously, I want to read the rules. I want to see.
Yeah,
the books.
so-
but I mean, they're doing teaser posts. You know, they're not gonna like put out the book.
No, yeah,
You know.
it's
July
true.
21st.
That's not so bad. Couple days. 21st. Holy shit.
Oh wait, no,
That's
the 10th.
tomorrow.
Sorry, I read it wrong. It's the 10th. So
Oh, I thought you said that was a release date. I was like, wow, that's
no.
efficient.
I think the release date's mid-August or something, or
That's
it's
still pretty
going up
fast.
for pre-order or something.
So it's only been like a little over a week.
It's going up to tell you might have been able to buy it if you were like Ghost in the
Yeah,
Shell
yeah.
land or something. You know.
But so, and I guess interestingly, so I think for shooting you use your defense value where you roll those dice and successes are based on your save value. In close combat it's a little different. You don't use your defense values or even saves or anything. Literally, it seems what you do is if you have like a bayonet or whatever, looking at the guardsmen, they have a number of attacks and their or weapon skill. You roll those attacks, get your successes. The opponent also rolls those, and again, similar to kind of Underworlds or whatever, you kind of, or like the attacker decides like, okay, I want to use this one success, I want to use it to cause damage, whereas then, or the defender can say, I want to use this one to block one of the attacks, and like you can kind of go back and forth blocking, like parrying or causing damage. So in this way, it's more based, like the close combat stuff is more like if you are better at close combat, have more attacks, or can get successes more easily, you, I think, will have more opportunities to like turn aside blows and things like that, and kind of make decisions like, are you going to put just all this towards damage, or are you going to like try to keep some to block things and such? So I feel that.
Oh, okay. So you're like electing how much of like a pool that you're putting into
I think so. So it's like
versus what's coming after.
I think so. I think that the attacker,
That could be fun.
the attacker makes like the first, like say like, I want to use this success to do damage, then the defender can do something and you go back and forth, such that I think it might allow you to like, oh, I want to use this critical to do damage or whatever. But ultimately I feel it sounds like it could result in some interesting back and forth decision stuff. And importantly, I think it will actually result in you, each side actually causing damage. Whereas, because I'm thinking like old Necromunda had an interesting system in which you would roll your attack dice, choose the highest, and add your weapon skill to it.
Yep.
And it's kind of neat that, oh, therefore people with higher weapon skill have a better chance of like winning the combat and doing something.
Yep, that's exactly how that worked.
Which was kind of neat. But, and then like the difference in your combat score was how many like hits actually were inflicted on the loser, which was sort of neat. But I found in a lot of cases, since like your models were shitty and couldn't really hurt each other that well, it just resulted in nothing ever happening.
It was that was a Necromunda is kind of a weird beast. Like it needs one of the reasons it was one of my favorite games was that the first game really wasn't very telling about how the game was going to be. And in fact, you were probably going to lose a bunch of dudes. Like your gang was very rarely going to stay the same for very long, and it was because of mechanics like that, which in the beginning, with your first few games with an outfit or whatever, that kind of fighting, you're just like, okay, so we hit each other and we fell down and then our gangs ran away. What the hell just happened?
Yeah.
But once you had some people that had leveled up a few times, and that was where you got the kind of specialization that you were talking about earlier. You had a couple of people that were just monsters in close combat, and you had some dudes that should never get anywhere near another human being. And you hoped they were good at something else, because they might not be, in which case you hope they're the one that gets kidnapped next turn, But either way, that game is very much a long long perspective.
The progression is important.
That game,
but I guess
be judged on first
just
first forays down.
Well, that's why it might not be the best rule system to use in like a one of like narrative game.
Exactly.
It's not that, and that has been largely my experience with it, and it doesn't necessarily work that well there.
No,
and it can
I was
be
surprised when I heard you guys say that you'd used that for like some Ink 28 games or whatever, where I was just like, really?
So it doesn't always work that well. But I think the fact that, and it also, sure, there's that back and forth decision making, but there isn't then saves and stuff, so it kind of pushes that out of the way. And there aren't like additional dice rolling. And in the same sense, even with shooting, you roll your defense dice rather than your like weapon skill like dice, because you're not hacking at each other. But then that's still the extent of the dice rolls. You're not like, oh, did you hit? Did you wound? Did you save? Like that's all streamlined kind of into a single set of almost like opposed rolls.
Yeah, which is great. Like, as long as it's got flow, that's great.
Yeah, so I think it has potential, and also the potential to be a little bit more granular. Like you don't necessarily have strength or toughness or any of those things, but presumably that will be kind of incorporated based on how good their weapon skill is and all these things. But we'll have to kind of see down the line, like how much better is a Space Marine at these things. And hopefully they're a lot better, but then that will also result in hopefully then you don't have 10 Space Marines versus 10 Imperial Guardsmen, and that there's actually like a real points difference in things.
A qualitative scale for
Yeah,
points assessments.
because so much of old Kill Team and 40K and stuff was like everything was so similar to each
Right.
other, and hopefully this will allow for models to actually seem different,
And hopefully
but in a
it'll
way
allow-
that's
And hopefully it'll allow for a whole truckload of special rules.
what would be really cool, because there's another aspect of simplification in game design that it definitely hasn't been talked about so far tonight, but I don't hear it talked about that often. And that's the simpler the rule set is, the easier it is to customize. You know,
That's true.
Yeah.
the less stuff a company throws into a rule set, the more a group of friends that buy the game and play together can just be like, okay, so this guy's a little better at this, so we just bump this. Does that feel right? Sweet, let's do it. You know, like
Yeah.
when you're not trying to craft something that's like going to appease a Titanic intercontinental tournament community, then you got a lot more leeway.
Yeah.
And to change a house rule, whatever, it feels way less game breaking with that kind of stuff. You know, like if something's really tuned tightly to be a competitive game and you start kludging with numbers, it's gonna shift the balance fast.
Yeah, that is very
So,
true.
A simpler rule set, even if it's one you don't like that much, you could probably make it something you're into. So that's worth considering.
There's
I think-
also one of the stats in it is like an action point limit, which like an Imperial Guardsman seems to be 2, which that to me basically suggests like a Guardsman can do 2 things when they're activated, probably like move and shoot or whatnot, and then maybe perhaps Space Marines, like maybe they can do an additional action or something because they're
Or Eldar, they're really
Better.
fast, right? Maybe they can do
Right.
5 actions. Probably
But we don't
not.
know what all the actions are and such, but
Yeah.
I feel that could be another way to make certain models like better, but not by adding like all these additional special rules you need to memorize. It's just they have more flexibility.
Yeah.
So that all sounds pretty good.
I feel one of the weirdest things to me that was introduced is their system of movement and
Okay.
measuring is weird.
How so?
So they seem to have a series of symbols. So the Imperial Guardsman movement is 3 circle.
Oh god damn it.
That doesn't
And
sound
A
great.
circle means 2 inches.
Oh,
Oof. Oof.
okay.
What the fuck
And
is that?
so like and so
Sorry, I
Holy
just had a
shit.
flashback to
Holy
I just had a
shit.
flashback to confrontation there. Sorry.
so riddle me this. What do you think the square, how many inches is a square?
And that was one of the things I
Oh my
didn't like
God.
about Blackstone Fortress, and I can't even really blame Blackstone Fortress for it because confrontation's what did it to me. I don't. Did you guys ever? You're probably not even.
I
old enough to
didn't
have messed
play
around
it.
with Rackham. Like the
No.
Like
Rackham-
before Necromunda confrontation?
No. There was this great. I know this is a G-Dubs podcast or whatever. There was this great. Well, it was terrible, but the models were amazing. This French outfit called Rackham.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
I-
painters were phenomenal, by the way. But they put out a couple of games to go with these amazing models that they made, and the rules were practically incomprehensible, and it was partly due to the fact that they used the series of icons, all of which were printed on cards about the size of the back end of my paintbrush.
oh my
God
God.
damn.
Even when I had eyesight that was worth a shit, I was just like, okay, wait, is that the red reverse spiral, or is that what it was just like? And if you couldn't remember what these obscure ass symbols meant, which of course there became more and more of them as the thing went
Yeah.
on, you were lost. And I fear I get this is a very simple shape structure we're talking
Well,
about.
but yeah,
here.
so
Probably jumping the gun,
seriously,
but
a square has 4 sides. How many inches?
oh, I see what you
It
did
can't
there.
be 4.
Yes,
no.
no, it's not 4. It's
That
not
could've made
4.
sense. No, damn it.
It's 3. The square is 3.
I
Guess
hate-
how many inches a triangle is? It can't be 3
It's fucking
because the
1.
square is 3. It's 1. The
1.
triangle is 1.
Why isn't the circle
Guess how much
1?
a pentagon is? Guess how much a pentagon
Oh my
is?
6.
God.
It's not. Yeah, the pentagon is 6 inches for
we
its
have
5
shapes
sides.
for this.
What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Who did this? Who did this?
The circle, which has 2 sides, is 2.
This is the
what
first
the
time
fuck?
I'm actually. This is the first time I'm gonna actually complain irrationally
What the
about
fuck?
something that makes no sense whatsoever.
Like, why would they do that?
That's fucking crazy.
Like, why
And
would
then
they do?
they look like
That's-
they've made these little plastic movement
no.
things.
So obviously, Kill Team version 3 will remove this.
yeah.
Or, but yeah, so they've
Oh.
made little range rulers, like the little
yeah,
plastic dealies that
widgets,
everyone releases. That one side is 1 inch,
Yeah,
the other
everybody
side's 3, and the other is
everybody
2.
just makes out of cardboard or plastic
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they got laying around.
So they're giving you one of those that have the shapes on the sides.
Yeah. So
So
I
the
guess-
idea
you
is
are
that,
gonna
like,
need it.
Yeah. Oh my
Like-
god.
Holy
and
shit.
so I assume some of the symbol stuff, like, because they
Oof.
did, I think probably after they kind of got a backlash, they tried to show like how this could be helpful in your games. Is that like maybe if you're moving and trying to get over an obstacle rather than having
we realize you're about to shit yourself with anger as soon as you see this. So
Yeah,
let
but-
us tell you why we did it.
But so rather
Oh
than
my
being like, oh,
God.
you lose 1/4 of your movement, or like for every 4 inches up, that's
Oh
2
my
inches. Like
God.
they're not, because
No.
that used to be the shit that they would do. Now it's just like going over any obstacle. It's like -1 circle.
What the
Fuck
fuck?
you,
So
dude.
like on this veteran troopers thing, his movement is 3 circle. Like what the fuck does that even mean? The circle's 2 inches. So does that mean 6?
Oh, it's
Why
6.
don't-
It's 6.
Why the fuck? Why don't they just have the 6 pentagon? What the
It's-
fuck?
Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, so it seems to be oddly confusing. Well, I guess
Unless-
I
unless
guess
there's
they're doing
something
it to be able to make it such that if you're going over obstacles, you remove one of your circles, such that now he's. But
Jesus,
like
this is
it
so
seems,
math, I can't even handle this.
Oh
I-
my
seems-
god.
it seems like overly obtuse for like his movement 6.
That seems
And
so
then-
asinine.
And then the fact that
Don't
the
you have
shapes.
his movement is 6 triangle.
Fuck.
I think the fact that
4
the shapes.
triangle and 1 circle.
I
Oh.
guess I could. Okay. If this is like an attempt to introduce the idea that different unit types in the game may have different means of mobility, or like
Presumably it
cyborg
is.
dudes move like this and organic dudes move like
Jesus
this and
Christ.
tall dudes move like this, like that's the granularity you asked for right there.
Yeah, I
but-
guess it just. I feel the fact that they are using shapes that are counterintuitive.
I mean, that's bonkers, but the concept alone, yeah. Hear me out. So if we've got because they are going to sell you shape tools soon. like,
Yeah.
Good call, buddy. Now, and I'm not trying to be an asshole here. I'm just saying, like, if they're doing like different movement styles or whatever, what it does do, even though I don't like the way they did it, what it does do is make it so that you don't need a special rule. You know, it's not
Yeah,
for
yeah.
cyborg that you have to look up or whatever. It's for triangle. You know, like this is so
Mhm.
that far. I'm willing to be like, okay,
I imagine
I've
that
up.
based on how they wrote some rules, there will be some elements that makes like, oh, that kind of works okay. But in a lot of the most basic ways, it seems like really overly muddling and making stuff like
Well, like for instance, they're showing
the
you
shape,
here.
Shape versus number thing. Yeah, that was a weird association.
Also, they're showing
choice,
here
but
for this
like
guardsman, they have a signal flare or whatever, and it says select one friendly veteran guardsman operative within. I guess that's the 6, the little pentagram thing within pentagram of the visible
Pentagon.
operative. Yeah, pentagon.
I
Of
want
this
it to be a
visible
pentagram. We're
Yeah.
gonna make it a pentagram.
Yeah, that'd be
That'd be cool.
metal. So it's just like Saga, that game with like the Vikings and other rule systems, they have their own movement shit where it's like short, medium, long,
Yeah.
and each one has a number associated with it, and it's just like I didn't like it. I mean, I guess I could get used to it.
That song engine that I was talking about, and there are like a million different Song of Blades games. It's Song of X, you know, but all of those use 3 sticks.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That's
not even
better.
numbered.
I think
Like, you
that's
just, here's your stick. You know,
that's better because, like, sure, it could be equated to
useful.
inches, but they just never, like, they don't tell you that, and you just use, like, that's fine. Which, interestingly, this is just having that been mentioned. Our very first blog post, like 8 years ago, was for, or actually, it was our second blog post, was for Deep Wars, which
oh, okay.
is based on this system, which
Yeah,
is
I mean, it's
interesting.
exactly. It sounds
But-
like the way you described it. I knew they were related, but it sounds like they just used the song engine and made a different game.
Yeah.
With it, so.
But
It's a robust engine if you don't break it.
I feel this is like them wanting to just use sticks to like say, but the fact that they
Just use sticks.
they immediately tell you that actually circle is 2 is odd.
I mean, it could make sense, and it like if they have specific sticks for people to use or whatever. Like if the box has tools that have use this shape.
It seems to. So I mean, it might.
Does.
So here's what they did for the guy that doesn't want to use the sticks and wants to bitch about it. Here's how many inches it is.
Yes, I think that's
fine,
basically
fine,
what
fine,
it
fine,
is.
fine.
But the fact that they made it,
long stick, but whatever.
the fact that they basically made these sticks like products they already sold, which I mean, I guess maybe that's nice because you probably already
if you've
have
already
these
got it.
tools.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I guess that in itself is kind of interesting. Is kind of
misunderstood.
nice.
The association of the specific shapes with the specific numbers they chose, I think, is really weird. But other than that,
It's weird, but I think it
retract
was
my
a way
outrage.
to try to make it such that we're giving you these rulers that like you don't, the inches just don't matter because you use these things. But if you want to just use your tape measure, you can.
I think that's smart.
So it's fine.
It's getting
just
ahead of
the
what just
shapes they
happened.
used, which I guess maybe they chose these shapes because they're all relatively distinct shapes. It's just they don't at all correspond to the numbers in inches.
Because like a hexagon
that just seems
would
like
have
a weird
still been very distinct. And it would look a lot like the Pentagon,
We're
but it
going
would.
into nitpick territory hard at this point. Once we figured out what this is about, but yes, I'm with you. That was a weird decision.
And I don't know. Well, so that movement thing is interesting, but I think based on all our conversation, it makes sense. But since it wasn't just introduced as like, we use this series of measuring sticks to remove the need to measuring, it makes it seem more obtuse than maybe it has to be.
You got to know me too, man. I mean, like if I've officially gotten to the point in my gaming life where if these games didn't have measuring at all, I would be 100% on board. Like, give me a hex map. I'm in, baby. This guy shoots 8 squares. Done. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am sick to fucking death of measuring things.
Yeah, that Mantic made a sort of skirmish-based game called Dead Zone that just used a grid thing. It was pretty nice.
a lot like Mantic has definitely made its fumbles or whatever, but the good ideas they had were great. And a lot of them were directly I mean, half the dudes that worked there were former GW dudes. So it was like, here's what GWs didn't do. It makes sense. But yeah, I'd love that. Like the simpler you can make it, the more I'm into it. And I
thank
realize some
God.
people hear that and panic, but I'm
Yeah,
just
well,
like,
thank God they don't have the las gun's range is 5 circle.
Yeah,
Like,
so I
thank
feel
fuck.
that's another thing. They probably just remove a lot of need to even
Yeah,
use
thank
the measure
God.
stick wherever
range,
possible.
table, done.
Yeah, like yeah, I think that's nice.
Yeah, 40K has a very long and fraught relationship with the concept of ground scale. It just
Well, see, the question,
doesn't make sense.
what's also weird, so like the movement is 3 circle, like why isn't it like 2 square? Is there a reason for that? Or is it like or why isn't it just like
if something impedes range by X
yeah,
or
like
whatever, I guess that makes sense.
that there?
That's a level of granularity I don't want. Like that's where I don't want granularity. Like, did I hit it or not? Sweet, next, But yeah, I mean that would allow.
We'll need to just see more. My guess is it's because some of the like terrain rules and stuff will remove circles. Like they probably where possible they try to tell it in terms of the 2-inch block to make it easier for
a linear obstacle removes square, a
something.
vertical obstacle removes triangle, whatever.
But I don't know. So ultimately, there are a lot of kind of interesting elements rule-wise for the game, which I think overall makes for something that I think could be pretty intriguing. And probably within the coming days when they release or like show a data card for a basic orc or a space marine or whatever, it'll be easier to get a sense of like what is the diversity in unit types here, or like an Eldar Guardian or whatever. Like how distinct is the Guardian from like a human in a way that like matters? Like, because
yeah, I think as long as an orc can hit with a choppa for like at least 5 dodecahedron, then I'm in. Like,
yeah,
we'll make it happen.
I want.
And I hope their movement is 2 square.
But yeah, so ultimately there's a lot of information.
That's a good way. I mean, it's not the way I would have picked, and it took me a second to get crammed into my head or whatever, but that is a fairly, I wish they'd chosen different symbols, but that concept is a fairly elegant way to introduce a lot of simple stat line granularity without involving any rulebook diving. That's actually
true. Yeah.
Credit where credit's due. That's pretty fucking clever, honestly. Like,
and I think
even Song didn't do that. Like, I'm not saying that's the gold standard by any means. It's fun and it works, which is better than most.
Well, it seems like the fact that like using dice pools and kind of like canceling others, but criticals need critical cancels, like some of that stuff. It's clear some of the rules here were taken from some of their other more experimental games, and it's nice to see them trying to incorporate some of maybe their better mechanics to make a cohesive game that fits whatever design parameters they wanted, which I think is more of a narrative, granular game.
The more stuff I see that makes it so I don't have to open a rule book, the happier I'm going to be. I don't want a table full of cards. I don't want sheets. I don't want to look through a fucking rule book.
That's a question.
I need to know what I need to know.
That's the thing I was going to ask about. So they make some mention about how they have separate cards for the different unit types and such. And so that was something in their Age of Sigmar Warcry game. Like, you had different cards for all of the models, and they would tell you kind of what some of their special rules were and all this other stuff. And it worked okay. And I
hate the card thing as a learning aid. Like,
Mhm.
have you guys played any of the dumbed down versions of the games that they sell at like Barnes and Noble or whatever by chance?
Oh,
Like Blitz Bowl or
yes,
Blitz Bowl, by
yes.
the way, is one of the best board games I've ever played in
Blitz
my
Bowl
life.
is
great.
fucking
It's
great.
It is fan-fucking-tastic. And
Yeah.
it's the same deal there, where like
Yes.
every single thing in the game has like they put it smartly. They put in cards for everybody that everybody else
Nah,
has.
it's nice. Yeah.
It was great, and that's awesome for learning. You're not going to need them after 2 games.
Yeah, and so hopefully that's the
But,
same thing here.
yeah,
I
if
think it
that's the format,
probably.
that's awesome.
I think that
I
is.
think it probably will be.
The layout of the cards looks pretty good. It to me it looks less like the cards for Warcry were kind of a clusterfuck in some regards. Like you would have your card for your individual model, and then they'd have their stats and stuff, which after you played a bunch you'd kind of know them. But then they'd also have like individual like weird symbols that often weren't that different from the other symbols, and then you had to refer to another card to figure out like what that symbol meant, and like that
not good.
kind of
That's not good.
wasn't great. So like I assume they've learned some stuff
I mean, it sounds
from
that way, honestly.
And
Like I said, I know we all like recoiled when the shape thing came up or whatever, but after we talked it out for a second, assuming that's the direction they're going with it, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
And it solves almost all the problems we just mentioned.
yes.
That's
Well, part
smart
of
if that's
the
direction they're going with it.
Warcry thing, I think they wanted to do it such that there were no words on any of the cards, such that
Mhm.
they could just print one card for all the languages.
Mhm.
And I think this seems like they're not trying to do that, but still trying to simplify things where it could
But the
be.
thing to print one card for the languages, they couldn't because they had to print the cards for that second card with the special symbols and all this other shit. Like they printed
And what
all the
everybody's
different.
name is.
Yeah, so like it didn't.
I doubt that was actually their motivation there. Like they've
Yeah.
been an international, like massively international
For a
company
long
for a long
time,
time. So
yeah.
that's not like a hurdle they're trying to overcome. The yeah, I imagine that was their first stab at trying to do something like
Mhm.
that, where
I
they're
think
just like,
so. Yeah.
like what can we do to make it so you're referencing things less? Like there's nothing wrong with introducing mnemonics into your rule set. It's just a question of whether or not that mnemonic works for everybody.
Yeah.
So do we think the rule book will contain like all the army's data cards?
No.
They probably will not, but the last version of Kill Team was nice because it did have everything. I mean, they subsequently released expansion stuff and whatever.
It's possible they will, because like in some of the other things, like was the original Necromunda thing, they didn't have even close. They just had the
They
rules
just
for.
had the Escher.
And like I think
Goliath.
people were not happy with that for obvious
I was not
reasons.
happy with that.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they will have, like, I hope they have everything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they only had Orcs and Guard.
Necromunda is a weird thing to try and compare, and bear in mind I haven't, specifically because of what you just said. Like I was super excited when Necromunda came back out because I loved Necromunda when I was a kid. But what turned me off right away was realizing that I was going to have to buy 40 books. And I was not
bad.
stoked about that, so I didn't buy in to one of my favorite games ever when it.
Yeah. I mean,
but
if
again, Necromunda is trying to be a lot of different games at once too. Like if it's anything like it used to be, it is trying to be the fast-paced skirmisher. It is trying to be the narrative thing. It's trying to be the long-term, building up and getting better game. And if Kill Team's not trying to do that stuff, then it can focus on just being a fast-paced skirmisher, which
it seems like there'll be at least some development in the fact that you have different specialists and such, but my guess is it won't be quite the same as Necromunda, but we'll have to see.
I hope it's not. And I hope that it doesn't. Again, this is where I start getting weird and old because I don't want to spend money, and that doesn't help them. But what I hope it isn't is that they start putting out like boxes of specific units you have to buy just for the game, parts that aren't available in other model kits. If you've already got 10,000 guardsmen and you don't want to, buy space Nazis.
Well, I would
today,
imagine
like,
what they would do is maybe they'll have some stuff where, like, they'll release a new box where if you didn't have, like, your guard or whatever, you could get them, and then they would have physical versions of some of those cards that you don't really need, but, like, maybe if you wanted them, there would be a way to get them.
Yeah, I
It's
suspect.
tough. I mean, they gotta get their money back. I get there's gonna be some kind of retail fuckery there. Like that's just the way the business end of it works. But that's the kind of thing that kills something for me. Is like you've already got these things, but you must buy this too. I'm like, I bought it already, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to see. But I don't know. Ultimately, I'm still cautiously optimistic about all of this stuff. And
I think it could be cool. I'm excited to see how it pulls together.
yeah, I mean, I doubt I will buy all in. The thing is just
assuming you'd be able to.
Yeah. Like it probably will be hard to even do that, but I'll certainly buy like a digital version of the rule book and such. And
Will that
try
even
to
exist
see.
though?
Yeah,
mean, it will. They can sell it to me, or I can just go get it.
Yeah,
so that's how it
the
is,
way
guys.
of it. Yeah.
Make a digital rule book that's reasonably priced, and I will pay for it. Don't.
Yeah.
And it's yo ho ho time, ladies. Fucking fuck you.
I mean, maybe they won't, except they will have it only if you get Warhammer Plus.
Yeah, like
they give it in an app like they were doing for the 40K rulebook. And if they do that, I will not be happy.
I can't even get into that. That's
I don't want that shit.
Thing I've ever heard.
So hopefully they just release a digital like PDF sort of version that I can spend money.
Yeah, man. I want to buy your game. I want to buy the toys. I want to do the thing.
Yeah.
If you keep making it hard for me to do that, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I just won't do it.
That's the way of it. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess with that, maybe we've sort of come to the end based on our sort of discussion here, based on the information that has been provided. But does anyone have kind of last sort of just thoughts or things they would like to put out there about Kill Team or what we're hoping for or expecting?
The box cover is cool.
Is it?
It is cool.
I don't know if I've even seen it.
It's
like it has a Deathcore painting of his face, of Deathcore's face. I think it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very simple and nice. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic for it. Based on these discussions and stuff we have, they're trying to change the game and hopefully make it easier to play with less referencing bullshit and whatnot. Like, and all of that I think could be nice. And then if you say wanted more complexity, like you could just add that in yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, like, not only I agree with everything you just said, and I want it to be awesome. I really do. I love skirmish games. Regardless of how I feel about corporate politics or whatever else, like this stupid fucking universe has had my imagination in a vice grip for going on 30 years now. So that's I want it to be great. I want it to be awesome. I want to play it. I haven't wanted to play anything they've put out in a long time, and this appears to be as close as they've gotten in a long time to getting me to want to do that. And I want to be all in. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, kind of as you're suggesting there too. Like I'm always kind of interested in skirmish games to see how different designers are trying to do things to balance their different sort of objectives. And I'm excited to see that it seems like Games Workshop is trying some slightly different things based on their other designs to hopefully make a more compelling product that isn't just like, let's play 40K again in a slightly different way.
It's worth noting too, I should have brought this up ages ago, but I have been very active in. I've reached that point in like nerd old age where you just collect rule sets, and
Mhm.
uh, the like the first question on every message board, on every forum, on every Discord, on every everything in any new skirmish rule set is always how do I get my 40k dudes to work with this? Like
Yeah.
that's the market is there. Like people have 40k armies and want to play a skirmish game with their 40k guys that doesn't feel like 40k.
Yeah.
So like if they're really doing that, awesome. And I'm glad. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
agreed. Agreed. Well, I guess maybe with that, we can wrap up this episode. But it was great having you here, Phil. It was good to kind of get your perspective on this, and hopefully in the near
Non-gamer
future.
gives perspective on games.
But hopefully, yeah, in the near future, we'll learn a little bit more, and it will be something that we're excited to give it a try and maybe actually play some games. It's hard to believe, but that's my hope.
Yeah.
Just complaining about stuff. We could actually
Yeah,
talk
that's
about how much
right.
fun we're having for a change.
Yeah, and
I love it.
maybe be able to tailor it a little bit to play some cool Inc. 28 style games.
Fuck yeah, that'd be
That's what I
awesome.
want.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think that sounds good. And maybe in the future, yeah, we can have you back on to talk a little bit more about it after we know more.
Oh yeah, dude. If it's good, I'll be right there with you. Just like
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks again, guys.
All right. It's done.
Right on.
Yeah, but so I think up on the screen, yeah, there's some cool artwork for this new edition. This one's up on the screen of the Death Corps.
Oh, that is cool.
Like, is cool.
Is that
It looks like maybe is it Paul Dayton or whatnot. Looks like his style.
It's small.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That looks cool.
And they also have one where they're fighting some orcs, and the orcs look pretty good. They look better than the ones in the video. That's for sure.
This style was a little weird. Yeah.
They look bad.
Yeah. I don't like them.
I didn't.
It
Or
would-
they were passable.
Yeah. I just have to get off my high horse about orc design anymore, man. My ship has sailed. They've gone a different design language direction with them, but
Yeah.
I do love the commandos though. The beanies 100%. There were a lot of cues, like a lot of like fan service nods in the design of these guys, like the Burna Boy's mask from 3rd edition, and like the
It's
commando beanies and stuff. I dig that they're all big and hulky now instead of the skinny commandos I had.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some cool design stuff going on.
Kind of interesting that these commandos, they are not an orc warband. It's a separate warband.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's commandos, whereas then there's the greenskin warband, because
What's that? Oh god, what is that?
greenskins is just the regular orc kill team with has like orc boys, Gretchen. It also has clan commandos, Burna boys, Ludas, and all that stuff.
Well, that's
So it
actually
seem-
kind of cool.
So this, it seems like it's just a separate kill team that has more veterans. It's like all commandos, which is
like
kind of
that.
neat. But in the same sense, like they have the old Imperial Guard kill team, which is just the previous edition with like guardsmen, scions, and stuff like that. Whereas then the Krieg models, they're actually a completely separate thing called veteran guardsmen.
That's
Yeah, that's some more of that granularity element that you were talking about there too. And
Which I feel it could be good, and
it could, especially if that limits your choices and shit. Like if you're like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
want these options, get that.
Well, I was like, I wanted to play guard and kill team in the last edition, and it's like, so I made some guard, tried to make him cool, and then you go and look at the rules, and it's like they literally have no options.
Oh, it's like I can't get
I
any
can't
of the
get any of
models I
that,
made.
so that's stupid. And then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
now they released a new expansion where they add new units for all the armies, and you look, oh, what does Imperial Guard get? They get Ogrins. That's it. Like, I don't fucking care about them. It's like,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
like, they didn't do the guard well at all. And so this, I guess, suggests that
Maybe
they
we'll change that.
could add some other variations on that. But, yeah, I don't know.
Dave says, I find it a hard sell that those orcs are making those bedrolls and wearing backpacks.
Man, I always loved the concept of Orc Commandos. It was awesome. I mean, it was just a blood axe thing.
Yeah, the blood axe is how they wanted to be more human-like.
Yeah, the
and
blood
they would
axes loved the way humans fought, so they were just like, fuck
wanted
yeah,
to,
man.
yeah, and I think that was a fun kind of humorous, interesting thing that
Yeah.
orcs had that kind of lost for a while.
Oh, I doubt that they're going full bore back with it, which is sad for me. But back then it was great, man. All the clans had real specific flavors, and that was blood axes. Was like the idea was that they were the ones that were closest to human space, and they interacted with humans the most. In some cases, they had decided to cooperate with human settlements, like they might have human advisors. Like there were rules for like the guard, defector that they'd taken on in the warband or whatever. Those things were great, and commandos were an awesome extension of that philosophy. That's where they came from. So even if I can't have that back, at least I get the visual nod to that part of orc history, because it was a really fun time.
I agree.
Friends, I need to go to bed.
Right on.
It's been real.
It's fun to hang out, Greg. It's good to see you for a minute.
Yeah, sorry I said almost nothing.
Good to see you.
It's fun. Keep on rocking in the free world.
Yeah.
Can't help it, baby. We'll do it.
Be as well as you can.
Living the dream.
Have a good one, man.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Is there a demon kill team? Presumably there is.
One hopes.
I think so.
Chaos demons.
Was probably the most uninteresting bullshit.
Yeah, like you can, if you want a corn demon, like you get bloodletter.
Yeah, when in many regards you think the demons and stuff could be like the most interesting, where they could have all this cool, weird, crazy stuff, but in all actuality, nothing. There is nothing.
I mean, the way that they work in that fluff system or whatever, anyway, it would make more sense to have a cult that had managed to summon a demon or two and have that demon just be like a motherfucker.
That would be
well
better.
I guess maybe it then comes down to like, if we would ever really want to do, I'm just hoping for a rule system that is good, somewhat granular, but easy to use, such that we can modify it to what we actually want to do with it.
Yeah, I'd be stoked if it is fun out of the box, but
that would be great if it was fun.
Yeah, as long as it's simple enough to be able to kludge and make your own, then mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Should that fail to do the trick for you, remind me, because there is a system that I think is eminently suited to the Inquisitor concept. So.
Okay.
Are you still are you on the air or whatever? I don't.
We're streaming.
But it won't ultimately end up in the podcast form, and so you could certainly tell us what.
Just remind me. I've talked about it on the Discord before too. It's just this great system that's super flexible and is based on old Necromunda. It makes sense. It'd feel right if you tried it. But it's not presently available, which is the bummer. It was it's sold out, and the only way you can find it anywhere anymore is like secondhand I know what I have format, which is kind of a bummer.
I
try not to be like, get a hold of me and I'll give you this game for free. Like, I don't like being that guy. But the game's so fucking good that if you can't buy it, then
Yeah.
I want people playing it because it's amazing. Blah blah blah. Either way, trust me, I got rules suggestions. So I may not play anymore, but it's because I sit around and theory everything to death while I'm playing or while I'm painting.
Yeah.
At least you're painting though.
No,
Oh,
that's
man.
good. That's big.
I never finish anything.
I
paint 'em.
struggle to. I still struggle to actually paint.
Really?
Yes.
Seemed like you were staying pretty active.
It's-
Oh, okay. I was Eric. Sorry.
Adam's more active.
Yeah,
I
saw
mean,
that.
yeah, I do some painting and like
I'm
paint
painting a
few
Dark
models
Angel now.
year.
Oh, cool. I mean, it's what I've got like 6 or 7 things that I've been painting. Like that Chibi Emperor is the first thing in ages that I just sat down and knocked out and or whatever. But but that's why I like these chibis. Like they're real. They're. It's not that they're simple. They're not. They're actually really tricky. But they're fun. You know, they draw you back in and keep you working. So they're you can finish them in a relatively short time to a standard you're happy with, as long as you don't beat yourself up too hard.
Yeah.
But I do like that they have the capacity to really trick out. Like a painter that's better than me could really do some cool shit with these things. So
With all the large surfaces and things
Yeah.
to impart more texture or whatnot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now that I've got my lights fixed here, I can actually get on this thing. I'm the worst phone photographer on earth. Like until I sit down and actually like really photograph anything that I've actually finished, which is pretty rare. I don't I'm never happy with the photos I take. Oh, sorry, I had this turn that off. I have I hate the photos I take for work in progress. I think work in progress photos are important. I think more people should take them.
No, they are
Uh,
important. Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to learn from that than there is from here's my awesome finished model that's photographed and retouched and shit.
Yeah,
I
that's
hate
true.
photo editing. That's the worst.
He looks great.
Anyway, this thing's up here. Sorry, I'm not super tech savvy. I was set up to stream for a while and then decided I didn't want to. Shit's just kind of all over the place. All right. So yeah, like a more accomplished painter than me could do some pretty cool shit with this. Like if you actually look at the helmet or whatever, if you take the cutesy proportions out of it, that helmet's a beautiful sculpt. Like the ridges and the gas mask are where they're supposed to be. There's nice big lenses to grab a hold of, the rivets in the sides of the helmet. Like I was painting pretty much in the dark while I was talking to you guys, so I made a mess out of that emblem on the helmet, but that's got really crisp definition. Like the detail on the back's a little soft, but honestly, that's because I'm not that great at 3D printing yet, so I kind of that myself. But I mean, there's great little definition, like the little like the leg wraps.
Yeah, that's cool.
Behind.
I mean, it looks like it would be fun to paint and get big surfaces to kind of experiment with blending
transitions and
things
like
like
light
that.
sources.
Yeah, and it's super clean, and like all the like specific weapons or whatever, like they look like those weapons. You know?
The bolt pistol looks better than GW's standard bolt pistol.
It's really nice. Like this dude, seriously, like if you ever get into printing stuff or whatever, the capsule chibi is probably the best value on Patreon, hands down. It's like for $5 a month, dude gives you access to his entire catalog. And he's been sculpting for ages. So there's literally hundreds of fucking
That's
models.
cool.
They're just all good. Like if it was just like a pile of crap, then I'd be like, whatever. But like every single model, I'm like, okay, yep, I'll have that one too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll print that.
Yeah.
So that's nice. I'm sure we'll get into the 3D printing at some point.
It is a hell of a rabbit hole. It really is.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of could be its own hobby.
It's absolutely its own hobby. Like I have to force myself to not just dive harder into that. Like I set like a point, like you shall not pass here or whatever. It's like This is what I learned. Now I can make the thing I wanted to make and stop worrying about. Like at first, I tried to just be like, it's because I want to save money. It saves money. It doesn't save that much money, but
Yeah,
like
it has its own
if you were an
expense.
army guy, that would be pointless in my opinion to get anything with decent quality. But
Yeah.
as a guy that's bummed because I can't just buy one fucking model anymore unless I drop the same price that I would spend on a unit box, then
Yeah.
it's a great alternative for me. And it's not because I wanted it to be free. It's because somebody made an interesting sculpt. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's nice. I'm a-okay with paying for things. I just I want to pay for something I want, not for something I don't.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel if eventually you like get into doing your own like 3D sculpting or things, or
See,
even just kit
that's-
bashing per se with other digital things other people have done, like that's all stuff that would be a fun thing to explore and experiment with. So
it is. It's depending on the type of modeler and the type of hobbyist you are or whatever. Like it's got a lot of ups and downs, and it's definitely a learning curve situation. Even though it's being mass marketed or whatever anymore, it's still a very developing technology. So as a result, there's a ton of I don't want to say misinformation, but definitely a whole lot of experts that aren't very expert.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
makes
I'm
sense.
not claiming that I'm like a reliable alternative to that either, but I can't always promise that I won't advise on something I don't know because I talk too much and it'd be way too easy to fucking call me out. So I'm not doing that. But no, it's an exciting field, man. I realized when I listened back to do that quality check last time we talked that was one of the first things you asked me, and I got so distracted that I didn't even answer. I was like, yes, in fact, I have been doing a lot of 3D printing, but I'm definitely not an expert at it at all. I've gotten to where I can make what I want, um, and I could like help out people with like basic issues and do. But if it gets too much beyond simple shit, I'm just like, I'm not the guy.
Yeah, I mean that's a good place to be. Like you know enough to use it for the purposes you need it for, or you want it for.
Yeah, you could definitely rabbit hole way harder than I have, and
Yeah.
I have resisted that call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so how are everyone feeling? I think maybe we could soon call the stream to a close. We've been talking for quite a while now.
Yeah, I'm happy, man. I mean, I've me. I'll sit around and yak all night. It's on you to shut it down.
Yeah, like I feel it was a good discussion, and
Works for me, fellas.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining us in the discussion. I think you provided a lot of good insights and stuff. In particular, like you've, I think, read a lot more rule sets than I have. I mean, I've read a fair number over the years and played some, but like, it's sort of interesting to consider and try and figure out why they chose to do what they did with like a rule set. And
Yeah. Like I'm definitely not a designer by any means, but that was why I started reading lots of different rule sets. I was like, so if I could make the game I really wanted, like how would I go about doing that? Because I suck at math. So I needed to understand the theory of design more than I needed to understand the numbers. So that's a good way to do it.
I agree. I agree. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been fun. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep on enjoying the hobby. Over and out.
Yep, see you, everybody.
Thanks
Till
again.
next time.